All right. Hi, you guys. This is the last week of Memoirs. So, we're jumping into Memoirs Lesson 4. There is nothing new that you are learning this week. This week is simply to review figurative language, review showing, not telling, and then to talk about the assignments that are due this week. And so, it's the last week of Memoirs, so we're just going to jump right in. This page, you guys know it already. This is where you guys can reach me. Please, if you haven't joined Remind, join Remind. If you haven't followed me on Instagram, do that as well. And reach out to any of your friends that you know aren't doing the work and tell them to join and do the work as well. Remember that my office hours are 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. and you should be signing into your student portal every single day at some point between 7 a.m. and 2 p.m. It has to be a new, fresh sign-in every single day. So don't just save your password and think that because you signed in on Monday, you don't have to sign in again the rest of the week. You do. So please make sure you're doing that every day. All right. So this week, our objective, we're going to go over it. Let me get the pointer. So our objective for the week, this week you guys will practice applying figurative and descriptive language to your writing, as well as revising your memoir based on teacher feedback. So the memoirs that you guys submitted for me last week, I gave you guys feedback. You should have that by now. You're going to take that feedback and you're going to make the changes that you need to make for this week's assignment. And so the standards that we're looking at are the same standards that we looked at last week. We're looking at figurative language and we're looking at writing narrative, so writing your memoir. So again, what is a memoir? Please remember that a memoir is a story, a truthful story that happened to you. It is not a story that happened to anyone else. It is not a made-up story. It is a truthful moment in your life. Make sure that when you're writing the memoir, it's about your life, something that happened to you. It could be about someone who influenced your life, like an uncle, an aunt, a brother, or a sister. But please make sure that the story is your story. You are telling it from your point of view. So use the word I a lot. A lot of you guys submitted assignments that weren't from your point of view. You told me about your uncle, or you told me about, you made up a story that wasn't even real about a dragon in a 15th century palace in Paris. These stories need to be real and they need to be memories that you lived through, okay? So remember, memoirs often focus on a specific theme, so a message that you want to tell. A lot of you guys had very sweet messages in very sweet themes in your pieces, and I'm very excited to read the final product. So how do you structure a memoir? Please remember that every story has a central idea that focuses on your identity, okay? So what story has shaped who you've become? So remember that a memoir, again, you have to pick a theme and it has to focus on a story that happened to you, on something that changed you and impacted you in some way. Okay, next we're going to focus on figurative language. We've already gone over all of these things. This is really just for review. But figurative language means imaginative. It's language that produces images in a reader's mind. So if I made a note in your, if I gave you guys feedback saying that you need to focus on figurative language, it means that you are missing figurative language. You are missing imagination here, okay? When you write a memoir, or when you write anything in particular, the reader has not lived that experience with you. We are not inside your heads. You need to describe detail for detail, like you are painting a picture right in front of us. That is what figurative language is for. You need to paint that picture for us. It's great that I woke up on a Sunday morning and the sun was shining. That's great. But what kind of day was it? Were you cold? Were you comfy in bed? It's great that you had fun at your friend's party, but that doesn't tell me anything. What made you have fun? What specific details made you have fun? That's where figurative and descriptive language come in. So again, remember that your memoir needs at least 2 examples of figurative language, which means you need to have either a simile, a metaphor, hyperbole, imagery, personification, symbolism, repetition, or anaphora. We've gone over this 2 weeks in a row at this point. So I'll give you guys a second to read through the definitions. You could pause the video to read through them, and then we're going to move on. All right, show, don't tell. This was a big thing, and a lot of you guys told a lot but didn't show much. So show don't tell is an important technique used when writing that breathes life into your story. Telling sentences, they just tell us something. A lot of you guys do this. They're vague, they're general, they don't give specific information that don't involve the reader, right? Jack was afraid, or I went to the mall, or I woke up that morning at 4:30 a.m. and my mom drove me to the school. Okay, that's great. But let's try to show a little bit more, right? Showing sentences show us something. They describe scenes, they describe actions. They help us see by using clear, specific details that create strong pictures in our mind. Figurative language helps show in sentences. So this example here is a telling sentence. Jack was afraid. Now let's look at if we were to show how he was afraid. This is very different, right? As the footsteps stepped closer and closer, Jack felt his stomach muscles tighten. He flattened himself to the wall, the gritty bricks against his cheek. Sweat chilled his palms. He used both hands to steady the gun. This sentence is so different than this sentence here. In this sentence, we literally see why he's afraid. We see it. We can picture it. We know he has a gun in his hand now. We know that he has the bricks against his cheek. We can picture the moment. We can even picture it as a scene in our head. If we just say Jack was afraid, he could be afraid of a spider for all we know. Or he could be afraid of the fact that he didn't study for a test. Like this story here is plain. It doesn't tell us anything. This here, it shows us exactly what we need to know to understand what's going on in the story. And so that's why it's important that you guys show a lot in your sentences. And a lot of the feedback that I gave was to show and not tell. So focus on that. If you guys need more help, reach out to me through Remind or reach out to me through Instagram regarding showing and not telling. So what's the secret? How do I show and not tell? In showing and not telling, you have to be specific. Use figurative language and descriptive detail to make each sentence powerful and clear. So I gave this example last week, and it's going to be uploaded to the YouTube channel that I started, how I came up with this example. So if you guys want to go to the YouTube channel, which there will be a link on Google Classroom, please make sure that you click on it so that you can see all of this. All of these videos are going to be on there, and they're also going to be cut up into different specific minutes so that you're not watching a 40-minute video at once. But I gave this example last week and I walked you through it step by step, right? School is boring. And then I came up with this sentence. So I sighed loudly as the math teacher droned on in her monotonous voice about pi and square root. I tapped my pencil against the cold, hard wooden surface of my desk, looking at the clock every so often. Only 2 minutes had passed by since I had last looked at it, but it felt like 20 years had gone by. I'm using imagery, I'm using hyperbole, I'm using simile. I'm using all of these different examples of figurative language to describe in detail why I thought school was boring. I'm not just leaving it at school is boring. I'm changing it up. I'm actually explaining how school is boring, okay? So if I told you to show and not tell, it's because you were giving me this and I want you to give me something like this. If you need help with this, again, reach out to me, okay? So that's it for this week's PowerPoint, okay? I do want to go over your assignment this week. So you have 2 handouts, and so there are going to be 2 videos to this. Handout number 1, I'm going to talk about it right here. Handout number 2, which is the final project, I will talk about in Memoirs Lesson 4, Part 2. So make sure you watch that. It shouldn't be long. Now this one, this is just your final practice. All you're doing is some more figurative language and show don't tell practice. So all you're doing is I gave you new sentences. You're going to either turn it into a figurative sentence or a literal sentence. So that's it. That's all you're doing for part 1. Part 2, all you're doing is showing and not telling. You're going to do some more show don't tell practice. So I gave you again 4 sentences, and all you have to do is show me. So you're going to go from a sentence like school is boring, and you're going to turn it into a couple sentences like this, okay? And that is all you're doing for this week's first part of the assignment. Your final assignment is the final project, which is your final piece of the memoir piece, and I'm going to talk about that in the next video. So make sure that you watch the next video to find out more about this assignment. Bye, guys.